Charli XCX. Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Thanks
what a
for-
nice intro.
Oh, thank you so much. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You started writing music when you were 14 years old. And I love in the early days, your parents were accompanying you to raves.
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, they used to drive me up to London. We lived in the countryside in Hertfordshire. And I would get asked to perform at these like warehouse parties and raves and stuff by promoters through MySpace. So, and I was only like 15 when I did my first one.
So they were hearing your music on MySpace and inviting you to come in.
Yeah, and so my parents were like, "It's not safe. We have to take you."
That's a good point.
It was. I mean, they completely cramped my style. I was like the weird like kid at the rave with their mum and dad,
As opposed to all those other 14-year-olds who were...
right. Yeah, I mean, sure, but it was, it was cool. I'm actually really happy that they were so supportive. Like it was a fun, weird time.
I want to talk to you about Britney Spears for a second.
Sure.
One of the most underrated pop performers of our time.
Really underrated?
Yeah,
do you think?
because I feel like as good as she is, we don't really see how good she really is. Like we see, I think, and a lot of people outside the pop world see her as kind of a symbol of a certain generation of pop music.
Sure.
But we don't see like Blackout, what a great album Blackout is.
Oh yeah, huge. Like one of my favorite albums of all time.
Well, but I want to talk to you about Baby One More Time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was influential for you.
Yeah, I guess that was like the first song that I remember I heard it it was on like the news actually. I didn't have MTV or anything growing up, but I remember they were playing the video on the news and I was just like, wow, who is this? I was very captivated and it felt like the most kind of like pop-tastic thing I'd ever seen and I was just like, whoa.
Were you captivated by the dream of the pop stardom, or were you captivated by the music?
I don't really know. Like, I don't really know at that age what I was captivated by. I think it was just her, really. Like, the outfit, like, the music video, this kind of, like, whole... I don't know. I just thought that she was really cool. I was, like, so sucked into the Britney machine. I loved it.
She's incredible.
Yeah.
You also said that the Spice Girls were really big for you growing up.
Totally, yeah. I remember they were my first concert and Ginger Spice left the day before, so I like cried the whole way through the show. It was pretty brutal.
Or she put out that Mi Chico Latino song. Remember
right, that? Yeah. I mean, I was kind of a fan of everything that she did.
Even the Mi Chico Latino song?
I don't really remember that one, but I remember the one where she was like dead Ginger Spice in a coffin. Do you remember that one? It was kind of cool.
I remember Going Down, which was like the Mel B song.
I don't know. Wow, deep knowledge. I don't remember that.
I don't know. Maybe that was like my time of the Spice Girls. But you said that girl power was your generation's introduction to feminism.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I guess that kind of slogan was sort of like thrown around everywhere and, in a really positive way. Like, I think it was definitely like my first insight of kind of girls coming together and, supporting each other.
I think I have to put myself in the place of people who are sort of dismissive of pop music. There are people who can be kind of critical of top 40 pop music. The work that you've done, I think, has been a big part of like just kind of solidifying it. You've been making really smart pop music. You've been getting a lot of like critics acclaim for pop music. Do you see a connection between the music you make and the music that Britney Spears and Spice Girls made?
Sonically, no. Like, I feel like my style of writing is really, really different to like those kind of classically 90s pop songs, like that like Max Martin like school of songwriting. It's like really obviously like incredibly intelligent, but it's not something that I can relate to. Like those songs are so musical, in their structure and their form. My songs, some of them aren't really, and
you don't think your songs are musical in that way?
Like musical,
they're more
musicals
rhythmic?
in classically, like the way that they're arranged.
So your songs are more based around rhythm rather than.
I think recently, like my song, like Boom Clap is like a very like classically pop song, but I think the songs that I've released recently are less sort of like classically, traditionally pop. It's kind of like experimenting more with like hip hop music that I love and kind of more left of center like electronic production rather than kind of being able to like sit down and like play a song beautifully at a piano, which I think a lot of those Britney early Britney songs are. But I suppose like for me, like the relation is, I don't know, like I just like how like completely like unashamedly pop both Britney and the Spice Girls were. And yeah, I mean, I've never really sort of seen pop music as like a dirty word. It's always been like a very cool thing for me. And I've always thought Britney and the Spice Girls were very cool.
They're incredibly cool. How do you feel about pop music?
I feel...
How does it feel to you?
Now, I feel like... I don't know, I think pop music's in a really interesting time at the moment, because obviously I think pop music totally morphs and changes like a lot all the time. And I think, especially like 2 years ago, I think pop was in like a really, really strong, like good place. And I think it still is, but I think like now I think hip hop is like probably, especially over here, and I guess in the UK as well with like grime and things like that, it's like definitely like the predominant genre like in my life, and I think in a lot of my friends' lives. I think that's because like currently like hip hop music provides this like kind of comment on culture that I think the world like really needs right now. And I think sometimes pop music, definitely artists do speak about that and you know, do kind of incorporate that in their music, sometimes in pop, but I think it's more common in hip hop, especially now more than ever. So I feel like it's kind of the predominant genre. And I mean, I've always loved hip hop. So
do you consider yourself a pop artist?
Yeah, totally, 100%. I think I was at my most pop in like 2014, but I think, and you know, I always love to experiment with different sounds. And like on the mixtape that I recently released, Number One Angel, I think that's definitely where I felt like most kind of comfortable, and like I felt like that was really representative of like me at that time. And so it's definitely always pop, but you know, I don't have any interest in working with like the people who are like supposedly like the hottest, like
your Max Martins, your
not. I would love to work with Max Martin.
If he listens to this, so we have to make sure.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
No, more like, you know, if someone's like, oh, so and so has like #1 Billboard, like blah blah blah. I'm like, cool. Like that's not why I want to work with someone. I want to work with someone because they bring something like completely unexpected to a pop room. You know, like that's why I want to work with people, because they can like flip pop on its head.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Q. I'm speaking with Charli XCX. Take a listen to her single, Boys.
I'm sorry that I missed your party. I wish I had a better excuse, like I had to trash the hotel lobby. But I was busy thinking about boys, boys, boys. I was busy dreaming about boys. Head is spinning thinking about boys. In every city I go, I'm with different ringtones.
That's a single from Charli XCX, my guest. That's a song called Boys. I want to talk about the video for that song, which you directed. So if you're listening to this right now, if you haven't seen the video, I'll do my best. It features, we'll say, scantily clad men, a lot of them very well known in kind of suggestive positions, pillow fighting, playing with baby animals, eating pancakes, drinking milk, licking guitars. It came out in July, has over 50 million views on YouTube. Charli, tell me a little bit about the vision behind that video.
Well, I think this video for me was really important. Like, I didn't write this song, which is like very unusual for me.
Who wrote it?
A big team of people, actually. Caslow, Emily Warren, Yerka. Oh God, there's actually so many people on that song. I don't even know everyone.
Right. But you wanted it. But you didn't write it, so you wanted to have a say in the direction.
Well,
of it.
I mean, I always have a say in my videos. I mean, I write all the treatments for all of my videos, but I've never actually like been behind the camera and directed one. So for me to even like consider taking this song, I needed some kind of ownership. And luckily I had a really good idea for this video, and had previously, like a few months before, directed another video for another artist. So I felt confident enough to do this one on my own. And you know, I just wanted to use this opportunity not only to make a great pop video, but to kind of like flip the male gaze on its head a little and play with those kind of gender stereotypes that are often seen in pop music videos. You know, the girls are like the sexy, cute props sometimes. Who are like dancing in the background or like
pouring milk all over themselves. For sure,
right, right.
But it's true.
And you know, I'm not like against like sexiness in music videos at all. Like some of my favorite music videos are like all about like sexy girls like in underwear dancing around. Like for example, like the Tainted Love video that Marilyn Manson made. Like that's one of my favorite videos ever. You know, but like I wanted to just kind of have the guys be the objects, so to speak, in this video. And it's not definitely not like a malicious thing. It's something that all the people who were involved in the video were really kind of in on, you know, like I told the guys, I was like, this is the idea. It's about like, you know, flipping the male gaze, and they were all really down and into it. And I think it was above anything just really fun to do, and it was fun to like boss them around as well.
But you were bossing around will.i.am and Jack Antonoff and Mark Ronson and Canada's own Kate Renata.
Right.
So why was it important to get not just people, not just models, but like visible, well-known people?
Well, you know, I think that kind of adds to the whole like hype of the video, and I definitely think like fans of, you know, all of the people that you mentioned, you know, found it like very funny and very like cool and ridiculous that some of their favorite guys were like doing these like sometimes ridiculous situations, you know, and scenes. And I just think it added to like the fun of the whole thing.
Because watching that made me think about the BBC documentary, the F Word, that you hosted for the BBC. Oh, the F Word and Me, I should say, was what it's called. And you have a really loud voice. When people speak, when you speak, people listen. Does that come with a responsibility? Do you feel a responsibility to talk about how women are treated in the music industry?
Honestly, no, but I just get asked all the time, so I guess it's kind of become my thing.
What do you get asked?
You know, like what is it like to be a woman in music? Like, do you feel responsibility? Like what you just asked, which is totally fine. It's totally fine, and it's a completely valid question, you know, and an important one. And I mean, I think that's kind of what the documentary was about, really. It's like how important is it to kind of talk about that, and how much does it even matter whether you're a woman or not, you know? Like, and I think it's like a conflict that is kind of frustrating, because I think most girls get asked about what's it like being a woman in the music industry, and you're kind of like, probably like very similar to being a guy in most situations, apart from if you're working with people who are real idiots, you know.
But there's a lot of idiots.
But exactly, and that's the thing. And I think that
like you have to deal with more idiots than
right.
I would have to deal with.
Exactly.
Sure.
And I think that's why it's important to talk about this, you know, and to kind of like vocalize my experiences, because I think that, you know, that could be really like helpful and effective to like young girls and guys. And I feel like now more than ever, like, I mean, God, like some of my fans are so young, and like the way they talk about feminism is so eloquent and intellectual. And I'm like, I didn't even know what that word meant until I was like 16.
You start feeling good about the next generation.
Yeah, they're all like 10, younger. Like, and you know, I think that does come from high profile artists, whether that's like Beyonce or Taylor Swift or whoever, like talking about and like using feminism as this kind of like very like in your face tool. And yeah, so I think it's a good thing. But like, do I feel responsibility? Like, no, just because I'm like very irresponsible.
But the reason I use the word responsibility, I used it on purpose because you make music, you know, you make incredible music, and you have this voice. I was wondering if it ever just kind of got to you, like, God, you know, there's so many people listening to me. It feels kind of, you feel a pressure to say something.
Not really. I mean, no, I don't. Like, because sometimes like I can really go into it, and sometimes I'll just be like, I don't know. I just won't feel. I'm not good. Like I didn't get into music to be a role model, like ever. You know, like that's not why I did it. And
I figured that's why you were hanging out at raves. You know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
And so it's like for me, it's like obviously I know that like by doing. You know, by being like in the limelight or like the public eye or whatever, like there is an element of responsibility that just is kind of like shafted upon you. But like I've always been very vocal with my fans that like I make mistakes. Like I encourage everyone to kind of like be themselves and not try and be like other people. Like be who you're supposed to be. And sometimes like that is like someone who makes like a lot of mistakes and says stupid things all the time, which I definitely sometimes do.
But we're all fallible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's cool. They know.
Yeah.
My fans are very understanding. Thank you.
Let's talk about music.
Let's.
Do you find it better for your creativity to collaborate with someone or to write solo?
I do really like writing solo, but honestly, like I just find it more fun to write with other people.
Fun how?
Just it's fun.
Like you're joking around and you're having a good time.
Yeah, it's just fun. Like, you know, like I like to work with my friends. Like a lot of like my best friends are other musicians or other like top liners or producers. Like because we hang out the most, because we spend the most time together working on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I like to collaborate because it's always done with friends. It's never done because like. It's, you know, suggested by the label or like, you know, because it doesn't feel like work. The second it feels like work, it's like I'm not doing it.
So are there collaborations with like pretty big name artists that you've turned down because you're like, that's just not what I do?
Sorry, say that again.
Have there been collaborations with like pretty big name artists that you've turned down because, you know, that's just not you?
There's been like a couple, but that's not because it's like I don't like them or, you know, and it's just that I don't know them, you know, and also that like maybe I wasn't feeling the song.
Yeah.
Like generally when it comes to collaborating, like the artists that I've done collaborations with recently in particular, like are people who I've like known for a really long time, like Mo or Ray or I mean Cupcake. That was different. Like I actually like just hit her up on the internet because I was kind of obsessed with her.
Yeah.
But now we're like really good friends and we're thinking about doing some other stuff together. So it's like that's more fun for me rather than just kind of like randomly like ending up on a song with someone that you never even meet, you know?
I often think about that, you know, having to walk in to collaborate with someone, like a complete stranger. And songwriting is kind of a vulnerable thing to do. Like you have to, especially if you're going to write a love song, you're going to write a song about your experience, you have to then like show off that experience to a complete stranger who you don't really sure you can trust.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and that's why like that's why I write with like a very small group of people when it comes to like writing for myself, just because you never know if someone's going to be like, so, like, tell me how you're feeling. What does this mean? That's like my nightmare songwriting session.
Well, I'll cancel my next question.
Okay.
It was, how are you feeling? Tell me what you mean. You have this new record coming out in 2018. You wrote some of this music back in 2015.
Did I?
Apparently.
Cool.
Did you?
I don't know. It's been I don't think 2015.
Really?
Yeah, that seems like too long. Oh, maybe it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. Oh, wow, yeah. Well, I mean, some of it's like, yeah, it's going to come out next year at some point. I don't know when.
What's it like holding on to these songs for so long?
So horrid.
Yeah.
Like horrible. But it's just like timing and blah, blah, blah stuff, you know?
So do you feel like you're just kind of in a holding pattern, you're just waiting?
No, I'm not, because I'm writing all the time.
Yeah.
So there's always kind of like songs that I'm like, oh, should I like replace this? Should I like do this instead? Like it's always being worked on, you know?
But you're not like an album kind of person anyway. I mean, you like albums, but I've heard you also say that, you know, you really appreciate the idea that you can just consistently put out music right now.
Yes, totally. I feel like albums are... I mean, they're like kind of, for some artists, I feel like they're a bit of a dead format, you know, just because it's like not like, you know, it's not like the 70s anymore where it's like the album was like the end goal. It's like, oh my God, like so-and-so is going to release an album and we're all going to queue up and buy it and we're going to play it on repeat and then we're going to like break it and buy another one. You know, it doesn't happen anymore. It's like, oh, someone released an album, like I'll flick through it on like whatever, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever your preferred streaming platform is. You know, it's like, And then it's like, oh, but like a week after the album comes out, there's like a movie that's coming out about the album, and there's 10 music videos. It's like the album is kind of almost just like the jump off point now, you know, for like all of this other access to an artist, which I think is great. You know, like, don't get me wrong, like I love listening to albums, and you know, like I still think they're like very important, especially for people who have really hardcore fan bases. But I do feel like, you know, it's not like it's not the end of the world. It's like also cool to just like release EP, single, album.
Yeah, if you could, would you just do that forever? Like, would you never put out a record, just keep on putting out songs?
No. I don't, because I do like the idea of an album, and like that mixtape I did, which I called a mixtape, but is essentially an album. Like,
well, it's hard to put out a mixtape on a major label too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did it, but I called it a mixtape, so I didn't have to deal with like the whole like drama of putting out an album, basically.
Yeah.
But like, I can't remember what I was saying. Albums, love them.
You're into them, really? Albums, love them, great.
Yeah, let's end there. I don't know. No, they're fine. There's just cool. There's pros and cons.
All right, let's follow up. Let's finish up, because I know you probably have a sound check to do, or you have.
No, you can take your time. It's all good.
All right. So in the BBC documentary I mentioned earlier, you ask, what's it like to be a woman in the industry? And again, and you mentioned that's a question that you're asked over and over and over again by people like me, by men.
Right.
And you say at the end, a better question is, what's it like to be an artist? So what's it like to be an artist?
It's really, it's a roller coaster, honestly. Like, some days it's like the best thing ever, and other days it's the worst thing ever. And obviously, like, I know I'm in like a hugely like lucky place, you know, and I'm very thankful for that, and I've worked very hard for that. But I think, you know, some people are just like born to be like stars.
Like who?
Or whatever. I don't know. That's now I can't follow that up with an answer.
Maybe Bieber.
Bieber, born to be a star.
Probably,
right?
Yeah, like he was. Like, people I knew him, and like he's from not too far from here, right?
Okay.
In Stratford, Ontario.
Right.
And like people I know, like he was winning talent competitions, and he was like in the womb.
Yeah. So
know?
I was not winning.
No.
I was losing stuff a lot, you know?
Right.
So I'm just like, for me, being an artist, it's like confusing, because there are so many other wider things that are important to me over like fame. And I think, you know, being an artist, there is definitely like this, no matter what anyone says, especially now and being in the pop sphere, there is definitely that kind of like hunger for fame / recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I definitely, like, when I was growing up, like watching Britney Spears and the Spice Girls, that was like a huge part of like why I loved pop music, like the glitz and the kind of hyper reality of it all, and like that whole world.
They were bigger than our own world.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that was like a huge thing for me, and why I was interested in it. And now as I get older, that kind of appeals like less and less and less and less and less.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, I want to write songs. I feel like I'm always getting told like not to talk about this in interviews, but I always just do anyways. But so, and I'm ill, so now I'm like really down on being an artist right now.
Do you think that like someday you're not gonna keep on doing these shows, and you're just gonna sit home and write songs and put your feet up with a margarita machine?
100%. Like, I think about that like possibly every day. But then it's always like, I don't know, there's like the whole, that's why I'm saying it's confusing being an artist now, because some days I'm like, oh, I just want to write songs. And then other days I'm like, oh, I'm a star, you know? So it's kind of all over the place. Who knows?
You're going to have a bunch of people singing along with you tonight. That got to be pretty rewarding, though.
Yes, of course. And like, honestly, like, I actually speak to my fans about this sometimes as well, you know, and they're like, you have to keep going because it means this to us and that to us. And that obviously is like really amazing and like completely wonderful to hear. And that's probably why I still do what I do.
I think I managed to hold it together pretty good in the interview, but I wanted to say I'm a really big fan of your writing.
Thank you.